Saturday View on Midlands 103. With thanks to Lumclean Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LumcleanEnergy.com. Have your say. Call 0818 300 103. Text or WhatsApp your Saturday View to 083 3010 103.
And a very good morning to you all on this bank holiday Saturday. Yeah, it's August bank holiday already. I think half the country seems to be away doing something or gone on holidays or have alternative plans. But hopefully you're listening, you're tuned in. Maybe you're still in bed. Maybe you're up having that first coffee of the morning. Maybe you're opening those curtains to look out and see if that sun is still shining. Well, it is a little bit, but it's a bit overcast, a bit cloudy, and I think a bit of rain coming later. But anyway, that won't dampen our spirits for this bank holiday weekend. Coming up between now and 11 o'clock on Saturday View, we're going to look at that whole issue of the price of school uniforms. Now, there was some analysis during the week and the results of a survey that was done that showed the average price of school uniforms for secondary school students was around €211. So what is the comparative, or what approach do primary schools take and all that? So if you have a secondary school student or somebody who's starting this year, or you've had to stock up on new uniforms because we all know kids are prone to sprout up overnight and all of a sudden those trousers you bought last week are suddenly 2 inches too short and you can see their ankles above their shoes. You know what the story is like and you're kind of going, wow, back to the shop again. But the report suggested that lots of schools are now insisting on additional items. So not just the traditional jumper and trousers and shirt or blouse, but also gym gear, maybe things like half zips, hoodie tops that have to have the school crest on them, which appears to be putting extra cost onto parents. So if you have an idea, if you have a number, let me know. 083 3010 103, exactly what you think it's going to this year. Let's see if your results match the results in that survey. But also we'll just look at the approach that majority of our primary schools take. It's a slightly different approach and one that I'd be more familiar with. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. We're also going to be talking about tourism and the tourism potential for the Midlands. We, of course, are under that brand of Ireland's hidden heartlands that Fáilte Ireland created. So we're going to look at what's the high level potential for the Midlands region as a tourist destination. And this comes on the back of increasingly warm and almost too warm temperatures in southern Europe, where people have gone visiting certain areas and almost suffered, like really couldn't function properly because of the extreme heat. On a local level, it's had huge impact in communities. It actually puts people's lives at risk. People have passed away because of excessive heat. So the question has been raised, will tourists begin to look at other locations in other countries for their holidays if those temperatures continue to stay like that or rise across southern Europe? And could Ireland be potentially that destination? Could we in time become like a Venice or a Barcelona? Now, I don't mean in terms of having cities that are based on canals. I mean, what if it was too many tourists? And what if over-tourism became an issue? Because that's very much an issue in those cities. So much so that people have begun protesting in Barcelona. You probably saw a week or two ago, tourists were being squirted with water guns to try and, I guess, just upset them and move them on a little bit, because locals were kicking up about the lack of accommodation and the severe impact that hundreds of thousands of tourists maybe concentrated over a short period of time can have on a city. And in Venice, I think even this week, they have decided to cap the size of visitor groups to 25 people. And I think, again, they're looking for a more balanced approach, that if they could have maybe the same number of visitors but spread out further across the year, it might make things a bit easier and make it a bit more amenable to the locals. So could that ever happen in Ireland? We're probably quite a long way from that at the minute, but let's dive into that a little bit later at about 10:20 with Fiona Dunn from Fáilte Ireland. As I mentioned there, the text and WhatsApp number, if you want to get in touch with me on the show this morning, 083 3010 103, the quickest and most direct way to get me. You can also give us a call on 0818 300 103. Nellie will take your call and pass on the message on to me. But I'm going to begin this morning by looking at conspiracy theories. I'm going to dive into a fascinating and often troubling topic. Now, these intriguing narratives have always been a staple of our culture, fueling the plot lines of countless movies and dramas, and even spicing up the daily gossip that many people undertake. But now, in the age of social media and 24-hour news cycles, these theories have found a powerful amplifier, reaching more people than ever before and often blurring the lines between fiction and reality. I'm going to explore why so many people are still hooked and fall for conspiracy theories, and maybe what the societal impacts of that might be. and maybe look as well at why are we yet prone to maybe believing conspiracy theories or believing what we read online? Are we more prone to believing it at certain times, at certain stages of life, maybe at certain, when we're feeling certain feelings, or if our anxiety or stress levels are up, are we again more prone? So to look into this, I'm delighted to be joined by psychotherapist and author Rory Hafford from Four in County Westmeath. Very good morning, Rory.
Hey, Ronan, how are you?
Rory, conspiracy theories, and I suppose even we've an almost a recent example there, like with the issues that presented from the women's boxing in the Olympics, and it was a story that went way beyond kind of what the initial part of it was. It became a debate around transgender athletes, kind of nothing to do with the Olympics. It really gained legs on the internet, and when actual fact was established, even the Italian boxer has since apologised, and that side of the story has died down. But online, I presume there's a whole thing continuing about that. Not suggesting that was a conspiracy theory as such, but it kind of gives us a little recent example of how quickly things can be amplified online. And this comes on the back of some research this week that suggested more than a fifth of voters believe that the Irish government is currently using immigration to replace them. And the survey says that social media, and particularly actors from not even Ireland but from other different countries, are creating a lot of this kind of discontent and disinformation online too. So when it comes to conspiracy theories, is social media the main reason that people are beginning to believe them more than ever, or has this always been a thing?
It's always been a thing. That's unquestioned. I think the online monster that the vast majority of the world seems to find themselves in the grip of has a lot to answer for it. And it enables people and it gives them a platform to spread conspiracy theories, certainly. But from a psychological point of view, it's really always been like that. And there's a list of things. The research will show us that there's a list of things that would spark a conspiracy theory. I'll just run through them quickly, and then we can pick them apart, because there's one or two are absolutely hilarious. I mean, if people feel a bit powerless by what's coming down the line, they change the evidence and come up with their own theory. That's normal. We all do that. If people find information hard to believe, so for instance, you said that the government is going to replace us all by bringing people into the country. Okay, so some people will find that hard to believe, and they'll come up with a different theory. It also lessens the pain. If something happens that you just can't get your head around, even though it's true, if you come up with a conspiracy theory, it lessens the pain on that. If COVID, for instance, is an example of groups coming together, and the conspiracy theories on COVID were legion, but it gave people a sense of belonging if they slotted into one or two of these groups. If you don't like the evidence of that which is presented to you, you come up with your own evidence. There's another theory. And then it's basically people who are naturally suspicious will also come in to fall into that pattern as well. The most recent one that I love is after the assassination attempt on Trump. Trump is apparently Jesus. He's Jesus come to earth. And they've even got the T-shirts are now being printed. So there's a right off the bat conspiracy theory for you there with Trump. But the thing, for instance, with lessening the pain is when Princess Diana, who the whole world was in love with at one point, when she died, the conspiracy theories came thick and fast because people couldn't accept the loss of this woman who many people identified with. The same happened with Michael Jackson. And years before that, it was Elvis. And everybody believed that they weren't dead. They couldn't be dead because the pain of accepting the reality of that death was too much. So they came up with their own theory. So you can see psychologically that people try to normalize stuff which they can't quite get their head around. And that's where you could call it normal conspiracy theories comes in. But as you go down through the list of it, Ronan, it does get a bit weirder. I mean, the thing with COVID, for instance, that could have caused untold damage. So the the big theory at the time was that the vaccine that was being pushed on us was not a vaccine at all, because it didn't come into the rules and regulations of how you would produce a vaccine. And that whirled around the world and could have caused all sorts of stuff. Now, it wasn't just, normal people who came up with that. It was scientists, it was doctors, it was people who would be taken seriously in the area. They felt that this vaccine didn't fall into the parameters of an actual vaccine itself. So that could have thrown the whole thing out of kilter completely. So, long answer to your question, conspiracy theories have been around forever. And it is being driven to a huge extent by the internet today.
Absolutely, and of course, the moon landings have always been one that's been subject to many conspiracy theories, and even a recent movie.
Classic.
Yeah, a recent movie has Fly Me to the Moon has a little pop at that, like in suggesting that there was a film set, but it was designed as kind of a contingency plan in case they didn't get there. It was quite an interesting take on it. I saw a picture online the other day claiming that the Titanic that sank is not the actual Titanic. It's that the White Star Line sent out a different liner for insurance fraud. And, somebody has pictures of the windows and they're suggesting that the wreck of the Titanic, the windows don't match. So this is kind of constant. And I suppose maybe in some ways it's a little bit of, kind of, dare I say, it's a bit of diversion for some people. But clearly when it comes to some theories, as I say, you can go out there. If you have a bias or you have an opinion on something, you can easily find the facts to support that new view. So are there specific personality traits then that are linked to maybe someone's likelihood to actually believe a conspiracy theory?
Yeah, well, if you're a bit gullible, if you are susceptible to having your thought process shifted one way or another, there's another thing. If you fancy yourself to be part of a group, simply because we may be in the gutter, but we'll all be in the gutter together, kind of thing. There is strength in numbers, so you will find yourself there. Oddly, another psychological group would be people who suffer is the wrong word, but people who have narcissism. It's a strange group, and I can't actually find the link with that. But they would also be high on the list of the kinds of people who would be susceptible to conspiracy theories. I also believe if you bring it closer to home, Ronan, I think that it's governments down through the ages have a track record of not telling people the full truth, okay, because they want to get stuff done and they want to move stuff along. I know particularly, I've been watching the government here for the past 15 years very, very closely, and the big driver is money. Money is the big driver for our government. So it's not a case of what is power to the people, for the people, by the people. It's not that at all. It's money. It's get their money. So people, understandably, in this country are now completely fed up with it. And there is a withdrawal. There's no longer a collaboration, I have found, with government policies, government thinking, all that kind of stuff. And I am the least political person on the planet, by the way. This is just from a psychological perspective. So whatever comes out of government will be it'll be challenged. It'll be challenged, and it'll be seen, I would imagine, automatically straight off the bat in a negative light. So therefore people will come up with an alternative way to view what is coming out. And that example of replacing Irish people with immigrants, I mean, that's mad stuff. It's mad, but it's still because there is a lack of trust within the powers that be in Leinster House. People are grasping at stuff to try and make sense of information coming from them.
Yeah, and again, the checking the validity of your source or the creator of that content, particularly on these online platforms where a lot can be said, a lot can be intimated in a 20, 30-second video. I mean, after Queen Elizabeth of England died a couple of years ago, I saw a picture was shared of, I think it was her former butler carrying some of the corgis onto the plane. and somebody had written you can see it in the dog's eyes how devastated they are. Now it transpired the photograph was about 12 years old. And I think actually, unfortunately, the guy carrying them had since passed away. So the photograph was nothing to do, it wasn't even from the same time. But yet loads of people were commenting going, oh, it's so hard on the dogs.
You're spot on. You're spot on. If your antennae is up for a certain storyline, it'll use anything to pull that into that storyline to prove that you are right. But the internet, Ronan, you said you have to check your sources. Sources, it would appear to me, are irrelevant on the internet. It's all about getting people's attention. If I can pull your attention in by whatever means, shock, horror, terror, whatever, that's me doing my job. So I wouldn't be going to the internet for proof of what's right or what's wrong at all. To me, it's kind of it's entertainment. Log on the internet if you want to laugh. Trump is Jesus. I mean, that's hilarious. But where's the source for that? So it's just if people get a storyline in their head, they will run with that storyline. But for me, the big thing is why, not the what, the why. Why are they doing that? So if you bring it back to the way the countries are run, people are doing that because they're fed up with the people who are in power and who are the so-called governors of the country. Particularly in this country, Ronan, nothing works, nothing really works. Housing, health, legal system, government, nothing works.
Yeah, and you could also say that if you take all of those issues, and I know this week it showed that housing is the number one issue for voters, immigration is number two, lots of other stuff comes considerably lower in the list then, but housing and immigration have changed, and people are probably conflating both issues too, and again creating alternative stories and narratives within that.
No, you're completely right. And I've said this on radio before, and it's worth saying again in light of the new figures that have come out last week. There are 4,500 children who are homeless. And I heard various ministers on the radio recently saying that we are proud of our housing record. There's 4,500 children sleeping rough, and you're proud of that. So it's no wonder that people cannot take the reality of that, because that's bats, and they'll come up with their own theory and their own story, if nothing else but to ease the pain of that. That's horrendous. That's horrendous.
And you pointed out there, that's fact. I'm sure if somebody were to look up those figures, and they're published by the departments as well. So, I mean, again, we talk about looking at your sources, where it's coming from, and at least verifying it. Do the numbers feel right? Does the theory fit? But I think even back to the idea that we'll create our own fact, particularly if we've been aggrieved or if we have a strong feeling or we feel we've been done an injustice in some level. But even day-to-day conversations, surely we all probably encounter somebody that maybe has some kind of a conspiracy theory, and that maybe is used as a shield or an umbrella or a mudguard around a particular issue we're having. So from the clinical perspective then, how do you maintain empathy with a patient, but also maybe try to open their eyes, or let them kind of discover that maybe they are maybe prone to believing a conspiracy theory or certainly a mistruth?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and the thing, it goes back to the fact that your mind creates your reality. Okay, pure and simple. So the way you see the world is the way that you have chosen to see that world. So from a clinical perspective, I, for instance, can't say to somebody, "Oh no, that's wrong. This is right," because I don't see the world through their eyes, through their mind. The only thing you have to do in relation to that is accept how people see the world, because they have made a choice to do that. So that is their right. Choice is one of the few things that can't actually be taken from us. So it is their right to choose to see the world in a certain way. The cutoff point is when seeing the world in that way is patently damaging. So if it damages somebody or causes them to be in danger or causes them hurt, still, even at that point, I wouldn't say don't do that. I would get them to question it, and I would give them potential alternatives to seeing things in a different way. But I cannot tell you I can't tell you, Ronan, how to view the world and what to choose to focus on in the world. That's always going to be your choice. And the other thing with conspiracy theory, it brings a lot of ease to people. If they believe, like for instance, the COVID thing, if people who were terrified of getting the vaccine in the first place tap into the theory that it wasn't even a vaccine to begin with, that brings them a sense of ease. You know what I mean? So that psychologically is a good thing for them. So this is not a black and white issue at all. This is whatever way you choose to see things. And again, the cut-off point is when they cause themselves harm.
It's a complex one, as you said, and particularly because, yes, conspiracy theories have always been a thing. You know, they've been a fundamental piece of literature, of movies. But I guess with a movie, you watch it, you know it's a movie. It's kind of it's fiction. So maybe it's allowing your brain process the possibilities and open your mind to conspiracy theories.
Absolutely.
And is that a problem that when we look online, we're automatically believing that then because it's a real person telling us? They could be spouting complete and utter lies and misinformation.
Yeah, but even that, Ron, you don't know if it's a real person. It could be an AI. It could be some kind of a robot. You know, it could be a gang of people from some foreign government somewhere telling you can't actually identify it. Online is not. I think the best thing would be to say that online is not real. Now, I was on with Will Faulkner a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about loneliness, and we were pushing the fact that, you know, people who are kind of sucked into the internet, they're on their own, so there is a loneliness there. And I made the point that it's not real. The online world is not real. It's characters on a screen. And I was lambasted in the comments with people saying it is real. It is. So people can choose to see things the way they choose to see them.
Well, I'd come in and say, well, what's Mark Zuckerberg's master plan? What's Facebook now known as Meta for the metaverse, the complete fictional virtual reality world?
Well, I tell you, if I knew what Mark Zuckerberg's plan was, I'd be a lot richer than I am.
There we
today.
go. There we go. Well, anyway, look, I think the key thing today, Rory, is Trump is not Jesus anyway, according to Rory Hafford. That is one of the key things. Rory, we could go on about this all morning. A few people have texted in. Somebody was, even before he said the word gullible, somebody texted in and said a gullible society. But look, I mean, we can trace that right back through history and suggest that. But I guess we also have the power this day and age to check our source and just try to open our minds a little bit, and hopefully we can change that. Yeah. Rory, as always, an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for that this morning.
Thanks, Ronan.
That's Rory Hafford there, a psychotherapist and author from County Westmeath. Somebody's texted in and said, of course we never mentioned this one actually, UFOs, or UAPs as they're now called, their existence has been controversial since Roswell in 1947, yes. Even American Congress is now taking it seriously, with pilots and scientists, etc. coming forward, and even strange videos released by the Pentagon. I believe something is going on anyway. Well, Sean and Eden Derry, I'd say you're not the only one that thinks that as well. Yeah, Roswell was always kind of a seminal moment, and it's still one of those things that appears, or it's referenced in so many American movies or new movies, even indirectly, that something happened and something is there and there's evidence and contained. But so was it a conspiracy theory or was it a cover-up? Anyway, interesting. You know, while we're at it for this bank holiday Saturday morning, let me know, have you a favourite or particular conspiracy theory that, you know, really, really you think, you know, bring it, let me know. And we'll throw it out there and see how many people remember that or have a similar view on it. Time for a very short break. After that, the tourism potential for the Midlands, and could we ever get to a point where we're turning tourists away because we're just overrun and we've too many of them? Let's find out.
Saturday View on Midlands 1A3, with thanks to Lumcloon Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LumcloonEnergy.com.
Still to come are school uniforms, particularly for secondary school students. Another thing that's added to that list of just ever increasing cost and expense on families. I mean, is anything coming down at this stage in terms of price? But let me know what you think. If you've recently splashed out, if you're about to splash out, because I think the recent report suggests about €211 is the average fee paid to kit a secondary school student out in Ireland. ahead of the next term. So let me know, what's your experience of that? Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. Have you found an alternative way of doing it? Have you found a cheaper way of doing it, much more cost effective? Because, I mean, the last thing you want is someone to go into school and come home with the knees ripped out of a trousers or a shirt or a jumper ripped, and then you have to go back out and expend even more on it. So let me know, 083 30 10 103. But before that, I'm going to touch on that whole area of tourism, because over-tourism become a significant issue across Europe, especially in cities like Barcelona and Venice, where the influx of tourists has led to overcrowding, strains on local infrastructure and the disruption of daily life for residents. In Barcelona, locals have protested against the overwhelming number of visitors, demanding regulations to preserve their neighbourhoods and quality of life. Similar in Venice, the impact of mass tourism has prompted authorities to cap the number of tourists and implement measures to protect the city's historic and cultural heritage. Now, concurrently, the increasing frequency of excessive temperatures in southern Europe is making these traditional tourist hotspots less appealing during the peak summer months. And this climate shift presents a strategic advantage, possibly, for countries like Ireland, where the milder weather and cooler climes may attract tourists seeking a more comfortable and sustainable vacation experience. So as a result, destinations like the Midlands, which comes under the Ireland's Hidden Heartlands banner, could see a rise in popularity, offering a serene and refreshing alternative to the crowded and sweltering southern European destinations. Is that a possibility? Well, let's look at this with Fiona Dunn. She's Development Manager at Ireland's Hidden Heartlands with Fáilte Ireland. A very good morning, Fiona.
Good morning to you, Ronan, and to all the listeners out there this bank holiday weekend. Yeah, a very interesting topic, Ronan, you raised there, because I was just reading during the week. This is the first week actually in Venice that they're starting the whole group tours trials. So group tours in Venice now can't exceed 25 people. So that's a big drop from where they were before, and guides can't use loudspeakers. So that's one of the measures that the city is bringing in to deal with over-tourism. So the goal is to keep the group smaller, because the argument is that the quality of a visit will be higher with the smaller group, and also the noise is causing stress for the residents as well. So look, it remains to be seen how that is going to go, because on the one hand, of course, you have the need to deal with the challenges of over-tourism. On the other hand, you have the lobby from the tourism businesses saying more guides means more spend. But, I mean, the reality is, and this is something we would stress in the Hidden Heartlands as well, you really have to get the visitor industry, community and environment all aligned to have a really good tourism experience. So sustainability, as we know, it's not just about the environment, it's all about a good visitor experience, and it's also about the community being happy with the tourism experience. And that, frankly, has fallen out of kilter in places like Venice and also in Barcelona.
Because many of those European or global tourist destinations, I mean, they're heavily promoted and they're always on bucket lists of places you have to see before you go. And you frequently hear of people saying they felt maybe a little bit empty after seeing it, or you just have a quick look and then you're gone again. But they're all very seasonal and condensed into a short time frame. Is that where Ireland has maybe an even greater strategic advantage, that we could actually have tourism operating for the 12 months of the year or even 10 months of the year?
Yeah, well, actually, you know, one of the big mantras that Fáilte has always been, or at least for the length of our last corporate plan, seasonality and regionality. And that's something that we really promote heavily. So you'll see, and frankly, it does respond to what you're talking about, the temperature, the temperate climate, etc. We do believe we have an advantage there going into the September and October months. But also it means that in terms of regionality, we're bringing more people in around the country later into the year as well. So it's definitely something that we're pushing on. But on that climate piece, you know, you were saying, I mean, it may be something looking into the future, the attraction of the Hidden Heartlands region and the appeal, frankly, of the more temperate environment, I suppose, we live in. But I have actually heard of people from the Gulf region hiring houses to come and stay in the region during the very hot months over there. So it is possibly something we're seeing, but I'd say it's too early to call it a trend yet, but possibly an advantage, certainly going forward. And frankly, any advantage that we have, an inbuilt advantage we'll build on it. I mean, Ronan, gosh, people never come to Ireland for the sunny weather. That's for sure.
Well, I'm going to tell you, many listeners agree with you. And if I had a prize for text of the day, I'd probably give it to this listener. They haven't given me their name, but they said, Ronan, I think you're listening to too much conspiracy theories. If you think this that the Midlands are going to be the new Barcelona, people go to Spain and the likes for the sun and the heat, not for the rain and fog. And I agree with them in some ways. But if the heat in some of these places gets to 40, 45 degrees, which has been happening, definitely the appeal lessens. And looking at the Midlands with its lush green mountains and trails and lakes, and as again that very much that Ireland's hidden heartlands, we've got flat terrain, we've got different terrains for people to walk and hike in, we've got dark sky tourism. I mean, none of this stuff exists in Dubai or the Middle East, so there are opportunities there. We just have to open our eyes and not see it as a conspiracy theory.
Oh, listen, look, I mean, no, I don't even want to go there with the conspiracy theories. The reality is, look, people still want to get a sunny break and that kind of thing. But, I mean, if you look at the hard facts this summer, we are seeing Irish people still want to go for the sun breaks. But there's definitely a slight drop off in terms of the length of time people are spending overseas because of the heat in the summer. And, there is an opportunity. But quite apart from the temperate and the climate perspective in sort of that sense, the hidden heartlands, and we saw this even happening before COVID, the appeal of the outdoors, the appeal of a quieter tourism experience, something away from, I suppose, the noise and the intensity of some of the bigger iconic attractions, is something that has been appealing to people for quite some time, quite apart from the climate piece. So, what we have and the offering we have here in the hidden heartlands is something that's growing in terms of consumer appeal, and that's been happening, for a number of years now. So I think we've really tapped in, and we have a tremendous opportunity here to really tap into something that's appealing to consumers from around the world who are looking for that smaller, authentic outdoors experience. And look, Ronan, we've had those discussions before. We know that to be true. But with projects like the regenerative tourism project, the Just Transition that you mentioned, there's a real opportunity now to work with the smaller businesses, community enterprises, build up some of the capital projects, but only to a level that we want. Because frankly, I don't think we want to be Barcelona here. So it's kind of a moot point. Do you know what I mean? That's not the kind of tourism we would want, and it doesn't match the region we live in. So back to that point about getting the visitor, industry, community and environment in sync, that's what we're looking for here, and that's what we have a great opportunity for in the hidden heartlands.
And sometimes it's almost maybe trying to convince ourselves, and I'm as guilty as anybody maybe of actually not fully tapping into the resources that are here in the Midlands and really engaging them and using them. Because I remember being in Salzburg in Austria a number of years ago, and you were blown away by the fact that during after work people went skiing or they went hiking in the mountains. And right, we can't ski per se in the Midlands, but you can go kayaking on the Shannon, you can jump onto one of the lakes. There are a multitude of opportunities that we're even internally we're just not seeing them ourselves. Is that fair to say?
I think more and more we are, frankly. I think, I'll be honest, I think there might have been a little bit of a lack of confidence potentially in the past in the Midlands as far as our tourism product goes. I think we looked to places, the success of places like the Cliffs of Moher or the Storehouse in Dublin, because that's where the big buses went, that's where the tourists went. But frankly, I think a lot of it has to do with marketing. And I think marketing in a very careful way, not to promote, we don't want to see huge influxes of tourists, and we won't going forward, to promote what we have, that more authentic sense of tourism, the outdoors activity, the small communities, etc. And frankly, that kind of real authentic Irish experience that you get when you're in the Midlands, that's something that the tourist is looking for now. And I think it's something that we should absolutely be confident about, because I think people, you can even see it again back to the hard stats, Ronan, the era of the big tour bus is in decline, not in massive decline, but it's in decline. So it's smaller groups, it's intergenerational families. When I say that, I mean granny, granddad, the kids and their children coming together, chauffeur-driven cars, which bring maximum, say, 8 people. They're the kind of groups now that are really in vogue. They're the trends. It's not the bigger bus. So, frankly, even from a demographic perspective, what we have to offer here is something that's really tapping into the numbers that we're seeing and the trends in terms of tourism visitors. So I think we've got it all to play for in the Hidden Heartlands, and I genuinely believe this. I can tell you, Ronan, before I joined Fáilte here, I worked with Tourism Ireland in the States and in France, and you could tell that although people were more familiar, as I said, with the icons like the cliffs, when you started talking about a place that's focused on the environment, that builds its offering around a river, around the peatlands, etc., where there are communities where you genuinely go into a pub and people are playing trad and they're playing it because they enjoy it. That's the experience people were looking for. Where we need to work on is building the capacity of our own small businesses to market themselves, push overseas. Now, we're doing a lot of that with Fáilte and our colleagues, Tourism Ireland overseas, to let the overseas media, the consumers know what's going on here. We're building it up. And frankly, there was a great piece of research even last week, Ronan, that we talked about in the Hidden Heartlands. We had a steering group meeting, Red Sea, or a research company. And the brand, interestingly, the Hidden Heartlands brand, never mind the overseas visitors, domestically, the appeal of the brand and the resonance, this was market research done with focus groups around Ireland, is incredibly high compared to the other brands. So I know we always look to the success of the Wild Atlantic Way, but the appeal of the Hidden Heartlands and what we offer is really growing and starting to resonate. But it takes time to build it up. But I'm absolutely
yeah. And even like Ireland remains, like I think it's the ninth largest investor, or even higher, back into the US. So like we've a huge presence of people leaving Ireland, travelling for business every day of the week too. And if they can even help spread that message, the future is bright. I think we're a long way from protests for over tourism. I think there's opportunities there, and it's lovely how you can speak about the changing demographics and the type of tourist that's coming. And if business can respond to that, it seems to be a time for everybody to sort of make hay as well. Fiona Dunn, thank you so much for that this morning, and a conversation I think we'll definitely follow up on taking care of business at some stage. Fiona there is the Regional Development Manager, Fiona Dunn, Regional Development Manager, Ireland's Hidden Heartlands. So one person has texted, I was saying earlier about the cost of school uniforms and nothing's to be coming down. This listener says the one thing that's due to come down is the rain a bit later on. Well, do you know what? Stick a coat on, get out there and explore the Midlands if you can. Lots to do.
Saturday View on Midlands 183 with thanks to Lumcloon Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LumcloonEnergy.com.
What an occasion it was yesterday when Paul O'Donovan and Finbar McCarthy won again in the Olympics, their second goal in a row. Paul's third medal in 3 Olympics, a new record for an Irish athlete. Gotta love the demeanour about being underdogs and, being fluky and all that kind of thing. They really know how to play that game and do it so well. But imagine what it was like being there. But Pádraig Walsh, the behavioural psychologist from Bunbrosna in County Westmeath, was there for the rowing yesterday. And here's what he had to say.
I know usually it's psychological conversations that we have, Ronan, but this time I'm afraid I can't give you the lowdown, because I'm over in Paris and we've just witnessed the 2 lads from Skibbereen, Paul O'Donovan and Fintan McCarthy, after winning the gold medal. It was one of those unbelievable occasions to be Irish. It was like the Galway races at times, where you just walk down through the crowd and you bump into somebody you haven't seen in ages. We were the dominant force in terms of the crowd that was there. There were, 4 of our teams, 3 of rowing today, 3 of them in medal potential finals, and it was just incredible. When the lads crossed the line, there were a lot of people with their hearts in their mouth at it. But what was notable during the medal ceremony as well was that Ireland was the only national anthem that was sung by everyone. It was just one of those real red letter days to be proud to be Irish. The two rowers are just phenomenal human beings, and just an all-round great occasion. I have to say, if anyone's thinking about getting over to Paris for the Olympics, it's really, really well run. It's just a fantastic occasion. We've loads to cheer about in the Irish contingent, and we picked the best 48-hour holiday to leave our two small kids for the first time.
Oh, what bliss that would be. Thanks to Pádraig Walsh there, Bun Brosnan native, of course, regular contributor to Midlands 103. And what an occasion to be at, and a great way to plan your holidays. I mentioned the cost of school uniforms. A recent report by Barnardo's, the children's charity, suggests that the average cost for secondary school uniforms is around €211. Some of you are texting in saying you're spending a lot more because you're putting on crests, you're putting on badges, and you're obliged to have all those various icons and badges on every item of clothing, including gym wear, and it's pushing the cost way above that. The average cost, according to the report, for primary school uniforms is much less, around €119. Damien White is a retired school principal, and he was formerly the past president of the Irish Primary Principals Network. Good morning, Damien. Why are primary school uniforms, you think, coming in that little bit cheaper?
Well, I think we try to keep it as practical as we can. First of all, and probably saying it in many ways, it's probably hanging an old tale from school, from a school principal's point of view. The amount of people left out, or people take them off on warm days and forget them, and even though they've been asked to have their names written on the labels, they don't. I would say it's crazy spending too much money on school uniforms, because so often children, they lose jumpers, or they leave them behind, or whatever. Our office always had, we almost needed a wardrobe in the secretary's office for all the jumpers that were left behind. And try as you might, and every now and again you send out messages and so on. There's so many jumpers here. We've given jumpers away, but they're always left. So I would say it's crazy to spend too much on them. We have always said that, our uniform was always a navy jumper, and jumper would always be the most expensive item on the as part of the uniform. But if you could get a jumper for a fiver, you get a jumper for a fiver. I don't care whether someone buys it in Harrods or buy it little, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and you can factor in like those growth spurts that happen as well. And my kids didn't go to your school, but I might go out and have a look in that office, because I'm sure there's a couple of our jumpers out there. They seem to just go disappearing and that type of stuff too. But it does seem to have got, dare I say, a little out of control, certainly at secondary level, in having and requiring people to have these logos and badges, particularly, you say, when items can get lost, get discarded, and it's probably putting extra pressure on kids and families potentially then.
Yeah, I don't think it's just a different that pressure. As I said, the children look the same regardless. Once they're in uniform, the whole purpose is that we don't get into labels, and children aren't embarrassed by, somebody flagging them off over the labels on their toes. Everyone will look the same, and to me, it's a senseless thing spending too much on it. You want the children to be warm and comfortable in school, of course, but you can achieve that level of warmth and comfort, as cheaply as you can, and I'd be encouraging people to go for it.
Absolutely. Well, loads of people texting in, and they definitely agree with you, and glad to hear that said as well. And I think, that's certainly been my experience with kids at primary school level, that it has been, whatever works, and that without that excessive pressure on it. But Damien, sorry, the line is kind of choppy a little bit there. I'm going to let you go, but thank you again as always for that this morning. Damien White there is the former principal in Killy NS and the past president of Irish Primary Principals Network. And yes, lots of you are in agreement as well, and many of you suggesting you're paying upwards of €250, even €300 for uniforms, and then factoring in replacements and if items get damaged as well. So it clearly is a factor. And thank you for all your texts this morning, and thank you for all your texts around conspiracy theories and the tourism potential, and some of you quite whimsically linking them together as well, suggesting I could be a conspiracist because thinking that the Midlands could be the next Barcelona. But as Fiona from Ireland's Heartland said, well, that's not what Ireland is aiming for. We have far more opportunities and other potential as well. It's been interesting. Enjoy the rest of your bank holiday weekend. Stay safe on our roads. Let's try and not put any more numbers onto that 113 people who've lost their lives already. Watch where we're going. Watch out for yourselves and each other. I'll talk to you all again early next week.
Saturday View, with thanks to Lumcloon Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. Lumcloonenergy.com. Midlands 103.